Welcome back to Where in the World, where we have real conversations with young professionals about life and career, all while attempting to guess where in the world they are. We'll learn something new about our guests and what it's like to forge your own career path as a young professional. And when we say young, we're really talking about a state of mind. You'll learn by watching this web series that your career will take many dips and turns over time. And just when you think you've made it, you might have to scrap it all and start from scratch. Sometimes that's the way it goes. We ride the tide. I am your host, Clary Johnson, and I'm joined today by Jamal Spraggins, who is a global internal communication specialist at Beam Suntory right here in Chicago. The big, hairy question we're asking today is how can young professionals pursue careers of intention? But before we jump in, let's do some housekeeping. This is a mini web series game show. The questions will range from standard interview like questions to more personal questions about our guests' careers. You'll notice we're both here today with different backgrounds. In between questions, we'll each have an opportunity to guess where in the world the other person is. The first person to guess correctly wins. Our guests can also help out by asking for clues along the way. Please join me in welcoming Jamal. Welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. So, Jamal, you and I met recently at a networking event hosted by the Gathering Spot. And when I heard that you were internal communications, I was thrilled because it's not often that you meet people, especially people of color, in those types of roles. I knew I had to bring you on the show to learn more about you and your career path. I always interview guests before they come onto this show. And what struck me most about our conversation
Mhm.
was that you seemed very intentional and methodical about how you move in your career. That's a way of being that we can all learn from. And so I can't wait to hear more about your approach. Let's get started with our most commonly asked interview question. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Which is usually sometimes the hardest question. But yeah, so once again, I am Jamal Spraggins. I am from Chicago, South Side. My background is in healthcare communications and like research. So I have an undergrad degree in healthcare management that I got from Florida A&M University. And then I have a master's degree in health communications, which I got from Northwestern. And I kind of started my initial career out doing like healthcare admin. Then I switched over after my master's and I started doing research for a few years. And then from there, I pivoted and started doing like social media communications aspect for like in the health tech field. And then, yeah, I completely pivoted and started doing corporate communications, specifically internal within the last few years. And yeah, like you said, I work at Beam Suntory, which is a spirits and beverage company. And I, yeah, do internal communications and other type forms of communications. So yeah, that's pretty much a little bit about me, background. Anything else like on the personal side or just keeping it career?
If you'd like to share, maybe what is it about internal communications that attracts you to it? Is there something personal there?
Yeah, so I enjoy communications in general. Like this is may sound a little vain, but like I enjoy people reading like what I write and getting people to do actions or like based off of the things that I like write. And then I like that I'm able to like take complex information and kind of like tailor it to specific audiences and getting them to get the information that they need. So like, yeah, that's I think what I like most about like communications and internal communications specifically.
Yeah. I mean, you're brave because there are a lot of people who enjoy writing but are terrified of people reading the things they write. And so I know I don't know if I ever actually had that type of fear. I've definitely had other types of fear like public speaking or
Mm,
speaking in smaller groups or presenting within smaller groups. But yeah, I think it sounds like you found alignment in your career with something that you genuinely enjoy doing, and then finding a way to actually apply that in a role where you get paid well and you are making an impact. So we're going to talk a lot more about that because you didn't come up on you didn't come up upon that on accident, right? Like it was
No,
intentional. And so we're going
yeah,
to talk more about some of the steps that you took to make that a reality.
cool.
But before we get there, I wanna guess where you are because you're sitting it the okay, so I'm just gonna describe this for our listeners who may not be watching. What I'm saying is, there's a nighttime, we're definitely at dusk. The sun hasn't completely set, but it's going down. In the background, you can see uh, the, the sun's I guess halo is what I would you could see.
I feel like my hair is like, yeah, kind of.
I mean, it's the it's sitting perfectly because right there behind your fro is a mountain. And it looks like there might be some snow on top of that mountain, which tells us a little bit about the climate of this place. And then below the mountain, we have a city, and it is very much a city. There's a spire to your right, or to the right that I'm seeing, to
Yeah,
your left, to my right, and it looks like a golden spire, almost like it's gonna shoot out a beam of lightning into the sky. That's it. It's golden. It's lighting up. It looks very celestial. And then, of course, a beautiful sunset in the background. So that's what I'm seeing. I'm just going to go ahead and take a guess that you are in Japan.
yes,
Oh,
you are. Yeah,
I was not expecting that.
yes, yes,
For
I am.
everyone watching the show, that rarely
You
happens.
did that. Like, you could have guessed which, I guess, which city or
Okay, yeah, let's
which
do
place.
that. Let's do that. I am happy to like go down this rabbit hole. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're in Japan. All right.
yeah,
So tell me a little bit more about where you are.
yeah. So, oh, can I just say the city since you got it?
No, no, no. Don't say.
Oh,
Oh, well, you can
oh,
say Japan, but I
yeah,
want to guess. I'm gonna guess
yeah.
where
Okay.
you are in Japan
So
because
yeah,
Japan is.
I'm in Japan, and I guess like the reason that I chose it is because I got to go to Japan last year for work,
Oh, nice.
and it was like super dope, and it's like the furthest I've ever traveled, and it was like a really like unique experience, and I was there for a week and whatnot, and like even before I got my current job, I always used to say like I want to go to Japan, and then when I got the opportunity to go, it was just like, yeah, it was just like so random. So like, yeah, like when I started the year last year, I didn't think I was going to Japan, but yeah, that's why I chose it, and it's definitely a place I want to go back to. But I had such an amazing time, and it was like honestly the first time where I've been somewhere that's literally just as developed as America, and English wasn't a thing, and it was just, yeah, it was just like one of like a really unique experience, like something that yeah, I'll always hold with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I definitely want to hear more about what were some of the things that you did there. And I want to come back to, I want to find out specifically where in Japan you are. By the way, we've got a LinkedIn user. It doesn't tell us the name, but they're kind of laughing out loud.
It's
Yeah.
probably somebody that knows me, and I feel like that's someone that would laugh at me because I dropped my laptop cord and it was dying. But yeah, I'm hoping it's somebody that knows me that would laugh. But yeah, that'd be kind of
We're
rude.
laughing with you, not at you.
Yes, yes, I appreciate it.
Well, guests can also help you. So they may know where I'm at, but I want to
Okay,
give you an opportunity to guess where I'm at.
so I know it's on a shoreline,
We are in shore.
and I know for a fact, based off the mountains, it is not Miami because that's I know for a fact it's not Miami. But and I know I originally had a guess earlier and it was wrong. Um, like, can I get a hint, like, of a
Oh, sure. I can. I'm happy to give you a clue about
okay,
this place.
uh, okay,
So, yeah, there are more than 400 airports in this country.
Is it okay? I'm just gonna spitball, and I'm probably wrong. Is it like, is it somewhere in like West Africa?
We are not in West Africa.
Okay, crap. All right.
No, but I
Dang.
mean, there are very beautiful places.
Yeah, because I know
I
that's
mean,
by the water. Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a place in West Africa that looked like this, but unfortunately, we're not there.
I'm not there. Okay. Okay. Do I get another
Well,
guess, or we'll just circle back?
we're going to circle back after our
Okay.
next question.
Cool. Cool. Cool.
So, before this interview, you said, I'm a first generation college student and I chose healthcare management because it was safe. Tell
Yes.
us more about that.
Yeah. So I remember my senior year. I didn't necessarily like know what I wanted to do. I just knew I was going to college regardless. I was like, yeah, like I'm definitely going to college. Like I know that's like the way to, success in X, Y, and Z. And at the time, I was considering like journalism because I was on the school newspaper, and even back then, I really did enjoy like writing and like the creativity behind it. And I remember reading this article, and it was like the worst college careers you could choose, and journalism was like number one. And I don't know, I just had like this internal moment where I was like, well, like I don't think I can go and just major in anything. And like I don't think I was afforded that luxury. And so I kind of like looked around, and I was applying to colleges that's like undecided for a quick second. And then somehow, some way, I was just like healthcare. But I'm like, I don't want to touch people. I don't want to do blood. But like there's someone that runs the healthcare industry or the facility. And I like stumbled upon like healthcare management, and then, yeah, that's literally how I chose my major and was like, all right, you're going to have this career. It's going to be, great. And yeah, and that's what I majored in college in. And like halfway through, I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this. But I was very much by my junior year when I started doing the actual healthcare management classes, I was just like, yeah, don't want to do this. And I was kind of looking into switching or maybe double majoring in something, but then that would have pushed me so far back. And I was just kind of like, yeah, I need to get like graduate, get out of here. The student loans are racking up. So I was just kind of like, I'm going to just see it through. And that's pretty much what I did and graduated with a degree in healthcare management.
Well, I mean, what you said rings so true. How often is it that we're starting something new and we're not quite sure. We don't have the foresight to know what's coming down the line or
Yeah.
what we should be wanting. And especially, and I can only speak from my experience as a first generation college student, I didn't have an example of what college career, a college experience plus career looked like that path just didn't exist in my preview. And
Yeah.
so a lot of what you're going at on is your gut, like, how do I feel, what do I like, and what you did, which was research. And the research said, eh, journalism, probably not the best degree.
Yeah.
And so what you chose to do is you decided to pivot. Um, I can say, and I think we're in the same generation, but I also have a degree in journalism and broadcast journalism.
Mhm.
And I remember at the time that I was coming out of school, social media was becoming the thing
Yeah.
where everybody was a reporter. Okay. Like there was no such thing as objective journalism.
Yeah.
Everything was subjective. And that's what people wanted. People wanted to hear opinion. And what ended up happening was kind of the rise of the internet age. Newspapers, physical newspapers that you would get sent to your home, people started ordering them less and less. And so
Yeah.
now these newsrooms are struggling to find the money to fund the news, to
Yeah.
fund jobs. And so that had a ripple effect. Now, all of a sudden, we've got cameramen getting laid off of their jobs. And now you have the journalists who are doing all the work and still getting paid a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
Um, and so for me, I knew that I wasn't passionate enough about journalism to take that risk of going and working in the middle of nowhere, making $20,000 a year. And I apologize to anyone who listens to the show religiously because I say this all the time, but I just wasn't passionate enough about it. And so I knew that I needed to pivot and I wanted to do something where I would be able to take this skill and still apply it in an industry or in a career where I could make a good living doing something that I enjoyed. And for me, that was public relations.
Okay.
Um, and so, yeah, it's a lot of times it's in retrospect, we kind of look back and we may have those moments where like, man, what would it been like, or what would my career be like if I had just gone for the path anyway?
Yeah.
But the reality is, especially for jobs like journalism, or even healthcare management, like it's really about the skills that you're developing that you can then take and apply. And so this comes full circle for you, right? At some
Yeah.
point, journalism comes back into the mix, and so we're going to start to get into that and learn a bit more about that part of your journey.
Yeah. So yeah, I graduated college in 2014, and came back to Chicago, and I started working at an orthopedic clinic, and I was doing like health administration work. And I just remember a few months in, I was just like, yeah, nope, this isn't it. Cannot do this for the rest of my life. Do not see it for myself. And I was just like, yeah, like I have to do something different. And so I remember I was talking to people that I knew who did do journalism. And I was kind of like, okay, hey, like I want to go back to school and whatnot. And a lot of them were, and I was like, I said I was going to get a master's. And they was like, well, you don't need a master's in journalism or whatnot. They was like, maybe look into communications or whatnot. And then I was like, okay, but I was like, I still want to do healthcare. At the time, I was like, maybe I can do like public health or something like that. And I remember saying like, okay, I need to go back to school. I need to still be able to work full time, and I need to get like some type of cheaper tuition, and I need it to be like from a reputable like institution. Like I literally had these very specific criteria. And I remember I was on the bus headed to work, and I like looked up, and it was a sign, and it said 1 year master's program, health communications, Northwestern. And I was like, okay. And I like went to work, and I looked it up, and I was like, all right. And I saw that they had like an open house. I went to the open house, and they talked about like the different career paths you can go into. And it was all really aligned with what I wanted to do, like healthcare or like some type of public health or like whatever, like, in a direction where it was more about health literacy and communicating and like, teaching people in a way how to take better care of themselves and whatnot through education. And I was like, okay, I was like, I can do this. Like, and I was like, I can write and do these things. So I end up applying. And I remember like I got in, and then naively, I don't know why, but I thought that I was going to get some like in-state tuition from Northwestern, not realizing it was private. And I got the letter like you're accepted, and they were like, yeah, like it's going to be $53,000 for this 1 year, and they're like, we'll give you like $10,000. And I was like, oh, I can't go here. I was like, the student loans are already up there and whatnot. And I was like, I just didn't feel super comfortable like doing that. And I remember I was like, all right, so I'm gonna work for a year. Because I was at the time I was still living at home. So I was like, okay, I can. And the only bill I had was a car note. So I'm like, okay, I can save up. They're giving me 10. I can save up as much money as possible and then apply that and then take out a loan. And I remember, so I deferred it. Long story short, they end up contacting me, and it's like, why did you defer? And I told them, and they said, well, what would make you feel comfortable for coming? And I was like, oh, if you pay, I think I said 75%. And they said, we can do half. And I said, let's go. And that's what it was, because I was like,
Look
I'm
at the
not
Lord
gonna,
at work.
I said, because I was like, I'm not gonna beat this, because other programs that I looked into, they were 2 years. And even though it was like half the cost, in the end, it would have came out to the same amount, if not more, than Northwestern. And no one was giving me that much money. So I end up like, yeah, like doing that. And from there, I remember my first day there, this research doctor, she came in and she had this presentation, and she talked about how she was doing an e-cigarette advertising study, and she was hiring for a research assistant. And at the time I was like, okay, I need to get out of my current job because this no longer is what I want to do. And I was like, I'm going to apply for this. Kind of looked up what a research assistant was, and I was like, I can do this. Like, went, interview with everybody. And it was interesting because other people in my class, they also interviewed. And a lot of people had like a science background in the health communications program. And I'm just like, ah. And they end up liking me really well. They hired me, and yeah, that was like how I kind of got started in like the research part of my career. And I was still, yeah. So after that, um, I graduated, and through the program, I was like doing different writing and everything. And so that when my first research job ending, I ended up doing another research job. And while I was there, I was at the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, and I remember at first I was just mostly just doing like research and like doing like different like studies and stuff like that. And they had a Facebook page that no one was using, and they were publishing like a lot of like really cool articles and stuff like that. And I was like, well, how are we getting this out to our stakeholders, like the people, our audience? And they were like, oh, we just publish it in these peer reviewed journals. And I was like, well, you have a really decent following on Facebook. Maybe we can start doing stuff on there. And to it ended up taking off where they actually started making it like a part of my job. And I started doing, like I said, like their social media and different things like that. And I think what really made me go down the path of like, okay, I want to get to the writing was they end up getting $1 million grant based off of a a rehab workplace retention study. And I remember reading the proposal, and mind you, they didn't say anything to me about it, but they talked about how they would recruit and they would do all these measures and they would do all these different things through social media, through writing, through communications. And they just had my name, like our social media coordinator, Jamal Spraggins. And I remember I was like, I am a project coordinator, not necessarily a social media coordinator. And I don't know, it just clicked. And I was just like, all right, like I need to get to the writing. I need to like get over like to doing some type of writing. And yeah, that's what really in that moment made me realize like, okay, I need to, yeah, get to back to like what I think is where I'm supposed to go. So yeah, that's how I got back to communications, or to communications, but back to my journalism roots from high school, I guess.
Beautifully stated. And thank you for sharing that journey with us and being so vulnerable in this
Yeah.
moment. Yeah, I mean, it- sometimes it takes us to kind of go through it and then be brought back, and we never know when those moments are going to are going to happen for us, or when those opportunities are going to arise. And so the best thing that we can do is just be prepared for them, right?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'm prepared to guess where you are in
I
Japan.
feel, I feel like you're gonna get it, but for sure, like, yeah.
I mean, I only know of
I
a
know, right?
few places in Japan. I did used to work for a Japanese automotive company.
Okay. Oh, cool.
Never actually visited Japan, but it's on my list of things to do. And in fact, my brother recently hit me up and asked if I want to go this year. So I
Cool.
might be in Japan with you.
Yes. I have a lot of recommendations, but like, yes, guess it because I'm pretty sure you're gonna get it right. Like, I'm 110% sure you're gonna get it.
There looks like there are at least 42 cities in Japan. So it could be a number of places, but I'll guess the obvious. Are you in Kyoto?
No. Oh, okay.
I mean, I
I
guess that
am
was
not.
the most obvious one, but I'll give me another clue about this place.
Let me see. I'm trying to give you a clue where I'm not just giving it away. Let me see. It is like Kyoto was a really good guess though. It is, man, I don't know. I want to say it's the most popular place in Japan that people know of outside. So
Does it rhyme with Kyoto?
yes, it does.
Okay.
It does.
All right. Well, it's your turn to guess where I'm at. And in fact, friend in the LinkedIn your LinkedIn
I
user
know it's not Ghana
guessed
because
as
I
well.
asked, was she in Africa? And she said no. Good. See, that's what I'm thinking too. Okay, but she's not in Africa, y'all.
No.
So uh I'm just gonna spitball like Rio?
Rio what?
Rio de Janeiro? Oh, wait. No, wait, no. I'm like, wait,
In
I don't know.
Brazil?
Brazil. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm having Literally, I turn my brain off when I'm not working, and
It's all right. It's okay. No brain needed for this. I mean, I am in Brazil.
okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm actually not quite sure if I'm in Rio. I probably am.
Brazil.
Um, but yeah, that was a really quick one for both of us. We are. I am in. I am in Rio. In Rio. I chose this places because it's one of the most abundant places on Earth in terms of mineral resources. 60% of the Amazon rainforest is in Brazil,
Oh.
and it's actually one of the largest economies in the world, which I didn't know. Something that's really cool, the name Rio de Janeiro was named in error. A Portuguese explorer thought it meant the mouth of a river, when in fact it means January River.
Hmm. First of
Yeah.
all, shout out to me for guessing because I was just spitballing. But I was like, she's not in Africa, and I was like, it's by the water. And I know you said no to Costa Rica.
That
And
was before. That was before we
yeah,
got
yeah,
on
yeah.
that.
But yeah, and I was like, it's definitely giving like, yeah, another type of vibe. Okay, look at us.
There we go. There we
We're all
go.
travelers. We do it.
Well, let's get into our next question. Tell us more about a time when you had to make a difficult decision along your career path. What was the situation? How did you make your decision, and what was the outcome?
Yeah. Well, like I guess, yeah, following up to what I was saying, like when I realized I wanted to pivot into the communication space. So basically, at the time I was working at the Sherlock Brown Ability Lab. I had been there for like 2 years. Like got promoted. I was like managing 5 studies. And yeah, I was really comfortable. And I remember applying for a job at this company called Avive. It was like a startup. And I remember like interviewing and everything like that. And it was like all new. It was like it was for a health community. I'm sorry, it's for a communication specialist. Um, and the position itself was different because it involved like data and spreadsheets, but also a little writing. But like I had to learn about like JSONs and all these different things. And so it was not necessarily the type of communications I wanted to do, but I was really honest with myself and was like, all right, like, outside of like a few internships and like I did a brief stint as a social media strategist for Northwestern, I don't really have the direct communications experience that I would need to really like thrive. So I was like, I need to kind of start somewhere. And so yeah, I remember after interviewing and they offered me the job and I was just kind of like, going back and forth if I was going to take it because, like, again, it was like for a startup, it was different than what I was doing, and it involved like way more data than I wanted to know about or do. And I just remember thinking, like, okay, I know that in the end, this was gonna get me to where I ultimately want to go. And so I end up, like making the decision to leave. And it was like kind of awkward because, like I had said, they had just got this study where my name was like plastered all over it from the things that I like taught them. So it was like they were kind of taken aback, but I just in the end, and I was like honestly leaving like really cool people, like the research team that I worked with, like we were all like young like professionals, like fresh out of like either grad school or like college or going to grad school. So we really formed a really, really great bond. And I was really sad to leave them too. But like ultimately, like I kind of had to like put myself first and stuff like that. And yeah, it was a really big pivot that I did. And going into somewhere where you've been comfortable and you know the job like the back of your hand. Like I know everything about research from IRBs to like how to do proposals to the whole nine to doing something completely different for like this new health tech company where I kind of sort of didn't understand the product at first. So yeah, that was a big pivot. But in the end, I kind of thought about like where I wanted to be, and I knew that wasn't going to be my end all be all, but I knew it was on the path to where I wanted to go, and was ultimately going to give me the experience. So I decided to do it.
Yeah, I mean, how true is that? Is sometimes when, and we're actually have a question for you later about this, but when we are faced with some really great options in our career, so much on the show, we talk a lot about situations where maybe it feels like our options are limited. But there are going to be times in your career where it's going to feel like you have an abundance of options, and where it feels like I don't know which one to choose. Which one is the best option to choose? I don't want to make the wrong choice. And the best thing to do in those situations is literally what you were just talking about, is see yourself down the path. What does that look like? And try to find some alignment with the opportunities that are in front of you and where you want to be. And that can help make a decision. This reminds me a lot of when I was just graduating out of college, graduate school.
Mhm.
And I get it. The private school loans,
Listen,
man,
I just wasn't ready for that 1 year price tag. I was like, wow, this
they
is
get
like,
you.
man.
They get you. Um, but I was graduating from graduate school, and I had a summer job lined up. It was at a really awesome tech camp. I had worked as an assistant director at this camp, and they were going to promote me to a director, where I was going to be directing the whole camp.
Oh,
And it,
snap.
yeah, but it was a summer position. It was temporary. And in parallel to that, I had an opportunity to work at Honda as a part time student associate. So both opportunities were temporary. But what I was really thinking about is with Honda, it felt like the language that we used and the conversation we had, it it felt like there was opportunity for long term
Mm,
relationship with Honda. Whereas with this tech company, I knew that once that summer ended, that we would need to be having another conversation about where to go from here. Do I
yeah,
go work at the tech company? Do I try to like work with the tech company and kind of their corporate office, or do I try to pivot into a different role? What would that life look like for me after that opportunity? Ultimately, this is my senior year as well, so I also felt like I didn't have a ton of room for error. I was thinking about, I need a job when I graduate, and Honda felt like it would have been the best choice at the time. Now, looking back, I don't know. It's
yeah,
very possible I could have went and worked at that tech camp, had a really great time, and that could have opened other options and other possibilities. Um, I think what's important is, in these cases, is to align with yourself about, again, where do you see yourself? What do you want? And then also reach out for perspective. My mom was someone that I called, and
mhm,
I talked to her about what I was thinking, and she helped to give me this different perspective that helped me make the choice to ultimately join Honda. And as we know, I then became a corporate communications coordinator, and then I spent 5 years in that role. So there will be times in your career where you're faced with two options. Do I stay? Do I go? Do I go here? Do I go there? Um, and just find your center, find your grounding, find your alignment.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, you've made some tough decisions in your career that resulted in a pivot, as you were talking about. What would you say to a young professional who has two or three attractive career options and are wanting to make the best choice? How would you say that they should approach difficult decisions with intention?
Yeah. I think the best thing that they could do is kind of one, be honest with themselves and figure out like what they're looking for and what they're looking to gain and what they want. And like oftentimes you'll hear people, which I don't necessarily agree with, like the only thing your job owes you is your paycheck. Like you come there, you do the work. And I think especially for like millennials and like the generations after us, is we're looking for a little bit more than just the paycheck. Like because I can get a paycheck low key from anywhere, but I want me specifically, I look for experiences. Like what's going to give me the best experience to either that I'm going to enjoy the most, like whether that's being able to travel, whether that's being able to work on creative projects and stuff like that. And so I think you kind of got to ask yourself, like, what am I looking for, either for the right now or long term, and which one is going to get me as close to that experience that I'm really chasing after. I think oftentimes we get so caught up in just the paycheck and we're not really thinking about like the overall enjoyment or the experience. And I feel like you can enjoy or just gain different experiences from whatever you're doing. But like I think if you are really looking for like a specific type of experience or some type of outcome or something to gain from it besides the paycheck, and you use that as your guide, I think that'll help you make the best decisions for you. At least when you have like, so many jobs to choose from. Like I know people like, oh, I got a this, that, and the third. And it's like, okay, but like removing the paycheck from it, what do you think you're going to enjoy the most? What's going to give you the best experience overall? Because I feel like, we work so much. Like if you're just doing your 40 hours a week, that's a long time, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So it's like, I need to be getting something more from this job than just the paycheck. I need some type of experience. So yeah, I think that is the best advice. At least it's how I kind of like do, because every job I've ever had has been different, and each job that I have, you know, pivoted to has given me a different experience, and I've learned from each one. I'm like, okay, I don't like doing this, and in my next role I want to do this, and it just has, yeah, propelled me forward. So yeah, that's the best advice I would say, like, to someone trying to choose between multiple opportunities.
I mean, that's just great life advice.
True that, true
Like,
that.
and we've talked about this on the show, but like, when we take money out of the equation, what is left? And that's what you're left to kind of grapple with in your life is, well, I'm making a lot of money, but I'm stressed out all the time. I
Yeah.
can't sleep. I can't eat. I'm I can't take the naps when I want to take. I'm having migraines and headaches. I'm not enjoying my work. I'm stressed out. I'm feeling anxious. I'm depressed. Like, now you see the money in a different way, right? Now
Yeah.
now it's like, yeah, you got the money, but at what cost?
Yeah.
And so we have to kind of flip it on upside down and say, well, what do I want my life to be like? What do I want that life experience to be? What kind of experiences do I want to have? So you talked about wanting to travel, right? Like,
Yeah.
and we sometimes we have this idea that the things that we want to do are so expensive, they're so out of reach, but if we actually take a look at them, we might find that um they are very much possible and within our means
Yeah.
if we prioritize the things that we want accordingly. And so I think that's just great life advice, but absolutely great advice for folks who have multiple opportunities to choose from.
Yeah. Shout out to them. Like, yeah.
So our LinkedIn user, our anonymous friend, has said, "Well said."
Oh,
I
wow. I don't know who that is, but it's definitely somebody I work with. So like that is amazing.
they said, "Well said. I definitely need an experience, which is why I love our Beam family." Yeah,
Love
thanks for chiming in. Um, okay, well, with that being said, you've talked about finding opportunities in some pretty special places. You've talked about connecting with guest speakers, visiting open houses, attending networking events. That's how we met,
yeah.
and using LinkedIn. What are some practical steps young professionals can take to find their next career opportunity?
So I can be honest and say like I have only started being more like career focused, I'll say within the last 2 to 3 years. Cause like even though I always had an idea of like what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. And then I would just kind of like move like, okay, this is my next opportunity. But then like within the last couple of years, I'll say like, okay, I've been really like focused on like, okay, like I need to build these relationships because I realized that has helped propel, like projected and I'm sorry, propel my career. And I think one of the practical ways is to kind of like network within your current company. I think within the last year, especially like towards the end of last year, I was having like conversations with, like with my direct manager, like, hey, this is kind of like I want to kind of go into more of a creative space and stuff like that. And I started, having conversations, and she was just like, yeah, like that's, like very supportive of it. And what I started doing recently is kind of seeing like people who are in positions that I am interested in and kind of start making those connections and like talking to them like, hey, I'm interested in this, and getting like not only advice, but then just kind of like putting it out there, like if there's an opportunity for me to like switch or just, be more connected with what you guys are doing, like I'm here and I'm ready to learn. So I think that's something that I've been practicing for the last like towards the end of last year, because like my theme for the year is to be more intentional on all fronts, including my career. And I realized that in order to be intentional to make moves, I need to have conversations and build those connections. And I think the best way to build the connections is like where you are currently at. And if you see an opportunity to just have a conversation with somebody, you don't have to go and say like, I want to switch roles X, Y, and Z, but just to learn more. And because you just never know when the opportunity arises, you are at the forefront and they're like thinking about you, and they know, and then you're able to get the inside scoop or just get involved. So yeah, I think that's a practical way to continue to network. But yeah, starting where you're at.
Yeah, and what I hear you saying is advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, and that's something that took me quite a while to learn. Was Well, one, it was took me a while to even learn what I wanted. And then once I
Yeah.
knew what I wanted, then I could actually go out and advocate for myself, for opportunities, to nominate myself,
Yeah.
to be in spaces, to be at the table, um, to be granted more responsibility. And I think there's this part of you that maybe, eh, there were this parts of me sometimes where I felt a little scared. I felt like maybe I'm not quite ready yet, but you have to kind of push through that and go for the opportunity anyway.
Yeah.
That's a good sign. That's a good sign. If you're met with an opportunity and there's this feeling of, I don't know, this feels too big. That's the sign to go for it, because
Yeah.
that means it's a stretch opportunity. That means it's going to challenge you. That means that you're going to grow in that role. And you never know. You might surprise yourself by how awesome you are.
Yeah. Like, and I know this is going to sound like morbid, but like sometimes I often tell myself, like, okay, if I mess up, no one's going to die. Like, I am not doing surgery. I am not doing X, Y, and Z. Like, I'm like, if we try this type of method and it doesn't go over well, okay. But like at the end of the day, no one's going to die. I'm probably not going to get fired. Like, why not go for it? And I think, yeah, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, for me, those have been some of the best rewarding experiences for me over the last 3 years at my company. Like coming into my current space, and like everyone's like this great writer, and I'm like, okay, I'm cool with it or whatever, and just kind of leading more has been a great experience. But yeah, like I definitely often remind myself, like, all right, I'm just go for it, because like no one's gonna die.
Now, unless you're a brain surgeon
No, no,
or a
that,
heart
that does
surgeon,
not apply. Everybody,
like,
listen, if you are in somebody's medical facility, do not take my advice. People will die. And I refuse to like have this used as evidence. No, but like for the rest of
no
us who
Uber
are in,
drivers, like,
yeah, the corporate world, like no one's gonna die. No one's gonna die. If you don't get that brief to someone, no one's gonna die. So it's okay.
yeah.
Try that initiative. Yeah.
Try it anyway.
Yeah. Try it anyway.
Um, well, so our anonymous LinkedIn user has revealed themselves. Her name is
Oh,
Chanel.
what, Chanel? I thought this was my friend Chanel from Beam Suntory. So then, hey, I think
She's also cracking up with us.
yes, yes, this is definitely who I thought. Yeah, we're gonna check out this tomorrow.
I like how the two emojis were proof for
Yes,
you.
I love it. I know.
Awesome. Okay, so prior to this interview, and you've kind of talked about it in this interview as well, you talked about creating opportunities where you work. You
Yeah,
talked about the social media opportunities. Um, how can young professionals think about creating roles and opportunities where there seemingly are none?
yeah. I think, and one thing that I can honestly say, like I've had a very, and I've talked about this in different forms with different people, but like having the right support in your current role, I know unfortunately everybody doesn't get that. And but for me, I have a really good manager who I think is really invested in me, and I'm able to have conversations with her about like what I want to do, and like because she is my direct manager, she's been able to help facilitate that. But if you don't have the opportunity, I'll say like finding someone that you can like talk to about your career and your trajectory is like a really good base. And then once you figure out what you want to do, like start getting advice on how to have the right conversations. Like one thing for me that I told my manager last year, like I want to do more creative stuff, and I'm like, because at times, the corporate communications sphere can just get really like mundane, and I'm just like, and it's not necessarily like I'm not getting the experience that I want. And so I was like, hey, I want to do like more creative stuff. And she's been very upfront about like different opportunities. And then as of such, like this year I've been put on like different projects that have allowed me to be in more of a creative space and do more things outside of my normal of day to day. So that's what's worked for me. So I think, yeah, if you have a manager who is supporting you, like definitely like lean into them and have like conversations and stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, like your manager should be able to help, you move to the next step. If you don't have that, definitely find a mentor or someone who you can like have the conversation with to help you better align on what you're trying to do. And then ultimately you do have to be the champion for your own career. Like I know it's scary. Like I'm really big on like I know what I don't want to do, and because I know what I don't want to do, I'm it's easy for me to say like, hey, I don't want to do this. I'm not going to do this X, Y, and Z. But then sometimes I do need help and figure out what I do want to do, and then but once I figure that out, I can speak up for it. But like yeah, ultimately like you gotta champion your own career.
Beautifully said. And kind of the undercurrent of that is your relationships in the workplace. I know we talk about this a lot on this show,
Yeah,
but it's true. Your work, the skills that you develop along the way, um, that's important. And your output and your quality of work and your work ethic, that's vital. But if we're talking about growth happens through your relationships. It happens through conversations. It happens through inquiry,
yeah,
through self reflection, through advocacy of yourself, of your work, of your impact,
yeah,
and of what you want. And I know that can be tough, especially for people just starting out who, again, like me, maybe you don't know what you want yet.
yeah,
Yeah, you're just getting started. It's okay. You can say that. You could say, I'm not sure what I want yet. I want to try a little bit of everything
yeah,
and kind of find my way. But give yourself the permission to ask for what you want.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
the worst they can say is no. And if you get a no, it's okay. And I am a really big proponent in like if you're not feeling it at your current place, definitely move around. Like I think sometimes, people can get a little too comfortable or just a little too loyal. And I'm just like, no, if this is not serving you or you're not getting that experience that you're looking for, then it's okay to move around and not necessarily like just move to the first thing, but like take your time, look and see what's out there. And then when have, find the right opportunity, go for it. Because at the end of the day, it's your life, your career. And yeah, you gotta really be the champion for yourself.
Yeah. So our friend is definitely from Beam.
I know. Only one.
um and we're almost here at the end of the show, but I've got a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Cool. Um so with that being said, what are some steps young professionals can take to practice intention in their careers?
Oh yeah, this is yeah. I think let's see some steps overall. Like the first step is kind of figuring out what you want to do, and that's about being honest with yourself. And so, like for me, I'm it's easier for me to figure out what I don't want to do, and then I kind of work off of there. So like figuring out like, okay, I tried this, I don't want to do this. And then kind of always think about what your next role is. So I'm always saying like in my next role, I want this. Like for example, I'll say I want a more creative outlet where I can still do communications in a creative way that's having real impact. So yeah, one, thinking about what you don't want to do, and then thinking about and using that to think about things that you want to try and different experiences. So I think that's something where young professionals can really get a solid foundation and at least have some type of direction on where they want to go to next. And if they go into this opportunity and they realize like, hey, this isn't what I want to do, it's okay. You can like, I've done it. You can definitely pivot. So yeah, I think that's like the getting a solid foundation and figuring out what you do want to do, what you don't want to do, and yeah, just go from there. Oh, I can't hear you. I think you're still on mute.
My bad, y'all.
All good.
A lot of this of discovery happens through trial and error. And so again, it may be a situation where you're like, I don't even know what I like to do, but try it anyway.
Yeah.
And you might be surprised. I know for me, there were lots of opportunities where I stepped into them. I was like, this is gonna be the worst thing. I'm not gonna like this. But I tried it anyway, and it turned out that it was actually pretty cool. And I wanted to continue. And so give yourself permission to try anyway, even if you don't think that you'll like it at
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, like I agree. Like I've like definitely gotten things where I was like, okay, this is cool. And I gained a lot of experience from it. But like so on the flip side, I'm really big on like, I've tried this, I don't like this, and I will not be doing this in the future. Like so I think that's the thing. Like so often we hear about I didn't know if I was gonna like it. I got in, I liked it and I loved it. But sometimes we get in it, we don't like it, we really don't like it, and it's okay. And we just know for the future, like, hey, I will not be doing this anymore. So yeah.
Yes. Um, well, that brings us to our final question of the evening. And this is actually a question we ask all guests who come on the show.
Cool.
And that is, how would you describe success?
Man, how would I describe success? I think for me, how I would describe success as an overall like feeling where it's like I feel like what I set out to do, I'm doing it. And for me, it's about making a difference, impacting people. Like I said earlier, like I enjoy writing. I like people reading and doing the actions based off the things that I write. And so what that would look like for me is like I am having some type of creative direction over, whether it's a company or just or whatnot. But ultimately for me, it is a feeling of like completeness and that the work that I'm doing matters and that I specifically am making a difference in whatever space that I'm in and that I really am impacting people like and whether that is in the form of like my job, what I do in my day to day, or just me just being a presence within this organization or whatnot. Like that's what it is for me. And like really being excited about what I do. Like there have been certain times where I'm like, oh man, I can't wait for Monday because I get to, work on this or I get to like write this or whatever. So I think that ultimately is what success is. And I don't think it's something where it's a constant. I think it'll always ebb and flow. And I think as you continue in your career journey, it'll always be something that you don't necessarily have to keep chasing, but like if there is an experience that you're chasing or an experience that you want, it will evolve and it's okay to lean into it. But ultimately, I think if you are headed, on what you feel is the right path and yeah, you're reaching your goals and like your ambitions, then you are successful.
Beautifully said.
Thank
So
you.
you're on your path, you're reaching for your goals and your ambition, and you're making impacts along the
Yeah.
way in a way that feels meaningful for you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jamal, for coming on the show. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Thank
Um,
you.
Tell us what's coming up next for you in your career and how our listeners can connect with you or learn more about your work.
Yeah. So what's next for me in my career? Like I said I want to be more intentional in my career. And I think I've been laying the groundwork and the foundations to, do that. Like I said, recently I got put on a project where it's super like it's way more creative. It's like one of the most creative things I've ever been able to do from a corporate standpoint. I'm super excited about it. So yeah, like hopefully this will turn into other opportunities where I'm able to, like do that. But yeah, that is what I think is next. Where you can find me, of course, LinkedIn, and it is my name, Jamal Spraggins. And yeah, on what is my Instagram? It's J Spraggins, which is JAY underscore my last name. But yeah, no, that's where you can find me. And yeah, I'm pretty reachable. Like I'm, yeah. So
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on the show.
for sure.
And we will keep in touch and we'll be back, guys, and next week with another episode of Where in the World. Peace out for now.
Thank you.
See ya.
See.